I got my money back on that one in 2 years and was able to do it again. And that's something that my mentor early on taught me is like, you want to invest so that you get your initial down payment back as quickly as possible so you can redeploy it, put it back to work. And now I look at investments in that manner. If it doesn't give me my money back in a certain amount of time, or at least there's not that potential, then I'm going to have to pass and find something that will give it back to me.
Welcome to the Real Estate Mindset Podcast, hosted by Eric Nelson and brought to you by Wild Oak Capital. Eric is a real estate investor, business owner, and performance coach. Throughout this series, Eric explores the mindset behind why certain investors are so successful and how we can learn from their achievements and failures. Eric asks the tough questions around the habits, discipline, mindset, and more required to achieve the most ambitious goals. Thank you for being here and enjoy the show.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Real Estate Mindset Podcast. This is your host, Eric Nelson. Super excited for the guest tonight. This is Ramsey Blankenship. And Ramsey will start by saying thanks for your service. You are in active duty Navy, right? And help me understand what it is that you do, because from the description, it sounds incredible and dangerous. But if you don't mind, give us the history there. And then followed by that, how did you get into real estate? Give us your background there as well too, please.
All right, cool. Yeah. So I'm a Master Chief Petty Officer of the United States Navy, Special Operations in the explosive ordnance disposal world. And our job is essentially to render safe anything that has explosives in it, wherever it is, and however we got to get there. So anywhere from chemical, nuclear, it was dropped from an airplane, it was put in the ground by terrorists, whatever it is, our job is to render it safe and make sure that operations can be conducted. I've been doing that for 12 years now, been in the Navy for 15. I'm looking forward to the next 5 years. I'll be transitioning out of the military, looking forward to retirement. So I can do my military, or I can do my real estate full time. But I got started out in real estate the same way that a lot of military people do, which is pretty much they have like a bread trail. You get stationed, you go somewhere, use the VA loan, purchase a house, get stationed somewhere else, purchase another house, get stationed somewhere else, purchase another house. I had read whenever I was like 18 years old, just brand new in the Navy, I'd read the Rich Dad, Poor Dads. I'd read all the Kiyosaki books. I'd read Automatic Millionaire. I'd read the Dave Ramsey's and was considered myself an expert by that point. I hadn't done anything until I was actually out in California and bought a house for me and my family, not as a real estate investment or anything like that. And whenever we went to sell, the market had risen enough for us to put $40,000 in our pocket. And to me, that was life-changing. I was 23 years old. I'd never seen $40,000 in my life.
That's a huge amount of money for that age, no doubt.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Just to be clear, I mean, did you sell that? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, we sold that house. So in the military, you get paid a housing allowance. And the housing allowance out in California is a lot because it costs a lot to live in California. When we transferred to North Florida, the housing allowance was like half. And I was pretty scared. I was like, man, if this place doesn't rent out for 1 month, like we're losing 2 months of housing allowance so somebody else can live in it, or for it to sit stagnant. So we sold and we took that money down to Florida. And that's where I really started to invest. So that kind of kicked me off. That first $40,000 gave me the one, the confidence, and two, the ability to actually start investing. And down in Florida, I mean, I bought my first duplex for $40,000. Right? like out in California, cash, yeah, your down payment's 10 times that for the most part. Like it's ridiculous. But I started out with a house hack, and I told my wife I wanted to buy a duplex, live in one side, rent the other side out. She wasn't having it whatsoever. And what she had told me was, no, I don't want to share a wall with anybody. And so I didn't hear a no, I heard yes, but. And the yes, but was, yes, you can do this, but I don't want to share a wall with anybody. Right. So I went out looking and I found a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house with a yard. It had everything that we needed. And on the alley, it had 2 little 1-bedroom, 1-bath cottages. And so I asked the wife if the house would work for her. And she said, yeah, it's a house. It's fine. But she didn't really know that the 2 cottages came with it. And I was like, cool, perfect. Let's buy this house. Right. And yeah, before we closed, I told her, I said, what do you think about the neighbors out back? And she was like, well, just, looks like a couple neighbors out back. What do you want me to think about it? I was like, so you're cool with them? She's like, yeah. I said, cool. Well, those neighbors both pay us $650 a side, and our mortgage is $1,200. So we're literally, the first investment that we made in real estate was us getting paid $100 a month to live in the big house while other people paid our mortgage living in the little house. And that changed our life, because before that we were save, right? Ramsey, don't dip. Ramsey, don't drink Red Bulls. Ramsey, don't do the things that don't drink the high end whiskey. Well, I like dipping and Red Bull, and I like high end whiskey, and I wasn't being able to do any of this stuff, and it was making me mad. I remember following the Dave Ramsey methods, and it was like, take all your money, put it into envelopes, and then divvy it out. And my wife gave me 3 envelopes: gas, food, and entertainment. And the one that had the least amount of money, I had $75 for entertainment. I was like, what is this? This is bull. Hilarious. Yeah. Right. But once we made that decision to live in do that house hack, now we were putting $1,500 away a month in our pocket. I was like, ha.
Now your envelope's looking a little bit bigger now.
Yeah. I had all the energy drinks, Red Bull, and dip I wanted, man. This is great. But from there, saved up. Now, I'm a landlord. I feel comfortable with it. So let's get a little bit more uncomfortable. And I bought a duplex on the other side of town. And that duplex brought me in, like $600 a month in passive income. I was like, holy crap. Like this is starting to replace military income. And so it grew. I started getting into commercial real estate properties. I did a BRRRR on a 7-unit apartment complex. I started partnering up with people in different states, buying multifamily units, and so on and so forth. And now I'm out here in California, and I've got, multifamily units all along I-10. And the most, again, getting uncomfortable outside of your comfort zone is kind of a big thing of mine. We are closing next week on my first hotel. So kind of playing the Monopoly game, right?
Yeah. Well, man, there's a lot in there that you said, and I appreciate you sharing your story. What's hilarious about it is my wife and I currently live in a 3-bed, 2-bath house with a duplex behind it. In a very similar story where she's like, yeah, I don't want to share a wall, but found this place, and we still live there. I mean, and our renters are amazing. I mean, they're like our friends too. And so I think there's this bad connotation, like, oh, you live next to your renter, you gotta be like the jerk landlord, but it doesn't have to be that way. We love it. And we love having like the little weird community that we have. Like we share a yard and our kids love them to death. And it's just a cool little place. So all that to say is it's totally doable. It doesn't have to be like a traditional thing. You got to make it work for your family. And then, yeah, let's dive a little bit deeper into, your multifamily investments, if you don't mind, but go ahead first if you had something to say.
I was going to say, I actually did have to be that mean landlord, because the tenants, inherited tenants, man, it's a gamble. It's going to happen. If you buy any type of multifamily property, you're going to have some tenants that come with it for the most part. One tenant was great. The other tenant, and the seller told me, she's like, Greg pays intermittently because he's a painter, and he'll come bring $200 here and he'll come bring $300 here. And I'm like, I don't like that at all. But hey, sure enough, Greg would come along and give me $200 here. Well, Greg never wore a shirt. This dude would roll up, he would knock on my front door unannounced, because we're neighbors, right? He lives on the back. And he would never wear a shirt. Like me or my wife would answer, and he'd come drop us off cash. And I said, Greg, you got to go to the bank, man. Go deposit this stuff in the bank. And he didn't like that. Finally, Greg, you got to go, man. I ended up non-renewing his lease and getting my own tenants in there. And since then, I've had no problems. So it isn't always the best when you inherit tenants, but a quick change and you're moving forward.
Yeah, it's funny. We had that same story. We inherited one. He didn't quite work out, but we've been really lucky with the kind of the new renewed tenants. So it's interesting. So let's dive a little bit more into your multifamily stuff. So how, it sounded like you kind of gave us a story of how you got there. What are you looking at now? First of all, let's talk about your portfolio, and then where are you going? Like what's the markets you like, and what's a product you like?
All right. So I have a market that I invest in that I love. I have a market that I invested in that I do not love. And then now that has changed the markets that I look at and how I look at them. The first one's Panama City, Florida, and Panama City Beach, Florida. The only reason I invested there, because that's where I started. It was local, and it was in 2015. They actually had quite a few properties in the inventory. That has since changed. Since Hurricane Michael, took a lot of properties off of the market, and then as they get renovated, Florida market is extremely hot right now. They're just going like hotcakes. So got lucky. Did not know that I was just starting out investing. Did not know that I was investing in a market that was just starting to really take off. This is 2014, 15 when I started buying up properties, and at the time it seemed like not that many people were interested in real estate. Definitely not like it is today. So I could go and make a lower offer than what was on the market. I could negotiate. And honestly, there's a lot of properties that I passed on back then that today I kick myself in the butt for it, because that I should have bought them, but I didn't know what I know now. Right. Like, of course we all would, but so I bought that duplex in Panama City Beach, Florida. That was just a straight. I bought this thing for $40,000. I had to put $13,000 down, and it rented for $450 a side. And you might think $450 a side doesn't sound like a lot, but on a $40,000 investment, it was a 2% return. You know what I mean? So
yeah, and the mortgage is $25,000. So yeah, you're doing all right.
Yeah, my mortgage was $280 a month. I was pulling in $900. And I had to pay like $50 a month in lawn care. And I managed it myself because it was right down the street. So I got my money back on that one in 2 years and was able to do it again. And that's something that my mentor early on taught me, is like, you want to invest so that you get your initial down payment back as quickly as possible so you can redeploy it, put it back to work. And now I look at investments in that manner. If it doesn't give me my money back in a certain amount of time, or at least there's not that potential, then I'm going to have to pass and find something that will give it back to me. But from that duplex, I learned from listen to Bigger Pockets, the BRRRR strategy. And the BRRRR strategy is buy, renovate, re-tenant, refinance, repeat. And man, I tell you, it happened exactly like that. I bought a 7-unit apartment complex back then. I bought it for $200,000, but that apartment complex had so many problems. And it took me 2 years to stabilize, but I did all the work myself, like a dummy, really, to be honest. I've since learned that hiring other people out to do the work that you don't want to do is I'm able to do that now, and it just frees up my happiness. But so I bought that, renovated 1 unit at a time. And look, you can actually tell from unit 1 to 7 how my handy skills got better. It's probably about time to go back and re-renovate units 1 through 4, because there's probably some shady stuff. Back then for me, code was the light turned on.
It didn't spark this time. Got it. All right.
Yeah, if it didn't catch on fire, it met code in Ramsey's mind. And this was 6 years ago now. But that's whenever I put $50,000 down. I put $50,000 into it, and I went to the bank and said, "Hey, somebody put a post out there about a cash out refi." I had no clue what that was at the time. I just went to the bank and said, "I want a cash out refi." And the guy says, "Okay, well, let's look at it." He says, "We'll give you 80% of what the value is today, and looks like you can pull out $100,000. Remember, I told you 2 years before, $40,000 is the most money I'd ever saw. And I got a picture of me with my first $100,000 check. And the dude was like, yeah, this money's tax free. I said, what?
Yeah, that's the best part about it. That's incredible.
What are we talking about here? I get this $100,000 back. So now I got this 7-unit apartment complex that's completely renovated. I have zero money into it. And it took me 2 years to get it back. So my criteria that my mentor had given me was working. And I had no clue how or why this stuff was going to work. I just went out and did it, and it ended up working. But then I got cocky, man. I started, the inventory did start drying up in Panama City, and I had a buddy of mine. His name's Brandon. Me and him invest in a different business together. We're business owners, and he saw what I was doing with the money I made from that business in the real estate world, and he wanted to get involved. Well, Brandon lives in North Louisiana, and he asked me what I was doing in Florida. I said, I tell you what, here's how I look at a deal. You go look at them, and if it meets this criteria, I'll put up half the money. You put up half the money in your time, and I'll coach you through it, and we'll be 50-50 owners on it. He said, okay. Well, 9 units later, me and Brandon still own those properties and have made about $250 total off of those properties. And this is about 4 years ago. And I remember in 2018 doing my taxes on the Panama City properties, and man, things were just crushing it. I was happy. And then I flipped the page and do my taxes in Shreveport, Louisiana, and we had made $250. And that was the last check I ever saw from that property, because since then it's been money coming out of my pocket. So it definitely lost money, or at least we've had to do a couple cash calls. And I called Brandon, we have a chat about it. And I say, look, man, everything in Panama City is going great. Like, why would it be any different in Shreveport? And he goes, look, man, like, it's very hard to get tenants in here. And when we do get tenants in, sometimes they pay late and then they leave and don't pay at all. They got all this delinquency. And it's so I heard vacancy, delinquency, and then we end up having to include like utility costs, so expenses. That's not like in Panama City, man. I would have a lineup of people out the door paying application fees just to see if they qualified. Whereas in Shreveport, we were having to offer concessions. So what I did wrong was I cut and paste from one market to the next, just assuming I had this secret sauce, like this formula down pat. Didn't do any market research, didn't do any real underwriting, just back of the napkin type stuff. And it is bitten us in the butt in Shreveport, Louisiana. So what we did from there is we went out to LA, met with a guy who's real big into data, and sat down, and he taught us how to read markets from the top to the bottom, like macro to micro level. And now when I look at a market, I look at the health of the market. I look at the neighborhood. I look at median household income, median household value. I look at 20-year historicals before I put a dime into that market, because I learned all those lessons the hard way. And I consider that, the tuition to the real estate college, everything in Shreveport. I've learned more from Shreveport than anywhere else. But that's pretty much where we're at right now. We are closing on a hotel in Louisiana. We're still purchasing properties in Panama City Beach, Florida, but we are syndicating properties along I-10 from Mobile down to Jacksonville with passive investors. So that's it.
No, I mean, I think like that's such a good lesson, is to talk about sometimes it takes the pain to actually like learn the lesson. But yeah, market, you nailed it. Like, you can't cut and paste. What works one place might work really, really well. I mean, for example, like where I live in Colorado, if you can get a vacation rental, you're going to do very well. If you're going to try and buy a rental property here, a true long-term rental property, you're going to do terrible. And it doesn't work. That said, it might flip-flop somewhere else, right? Like, yeah, you might have a deal that works great as a long-term rental and then horrible as a vacation rental somewhere. So it's super good tip is to talk about your lesson learned and to make sure that you do the research, right? Understand the market, understand where you're buying and what works there. So awesome
Exactly.
tip.
So, I'm in the short-term rental space as well. And it's kind of comes natural to you if you invest in Florida at all, because it's just such a vacation heavy state. Anybody who's within half a mile to the beach can rent to somebody who's looking to go there, especially in Panama City Beach. But what I will say is, one of the things I was doing was I was taking all of this data on how to analyze a market based on buying multifamily properties, like large 100+ unit multifamily properties. And I was using that information to make decisions on buying stuff that didn't meet that model, right? Like, and I was saying no to a lot of things that could have been good deals, but the lens I was looking at it from was multifamily. But whenever you're analyzing a market for a multifamily property, like, you got to realize you're buying a massive chunk of not massive chunk, but you are buying a large chunk of that city's inventory when you buy a couple hundred units, especially if it's like a secondary or tertiary market. So if that market drops, delinquency hits, the multifamily world, you're taking a pretty big hit. Whereas the short-term rental world, like, if you try and analyze what's going to happen in Colorado, in the mountain town, where somebody is trying to get out of the big city to go vacation, if you're trying to analyze that market based on, how much people make in that area, and how many people live there, well, you'll never buy a short-term rental, right? You'll never buy a house that's a vacation home if you're looking at it through a multifamily lens. Whereas, and that's exactly why I'm buying this hotel. This hotel in Louisiana, for all intents and purposes, the market that I'm buying in is not a good market. Like, it's a small 2,500 people town. It's like, right, the only draw to it's really like a lake and bird watching and stuff like that. If I were to try and analyze that as a multifamily market, I'd say no all day. Like, you try and buy 100 units there. There's not a place that exists that has 100 units there, but people want to visit there. They don't want to live there. They want to visit there. There's no jobs there. They don't care. They're not applying for the job. They're not buying a house. You're not selling them a 1-year lease. You're selling them a unique stay for 1 or 2 nights in that town. So I really, understanding how to analyze markets doesn't just go from understanding a market. It's, what is your goal? What is it you want to do? Like in Shreveport, Louisiana, you can make money. Most of the people are making money flipping or new developments, but multifamily, I'm not going to reinvest in multifamily in Shreveport because it's losing population. So that's my take on market analytics, I guess, 101.
No, that's all good. So, and then let's move to realfocus.org, right? So is that your website? Can you tell us about your group? And then, let's talk about syndications a little bit. So what are you guys looking for? What's like a deal that you'd be interested in, type thing? Like, what are you guys after?
Yeah. So we look for value adds, and it's B and C class apartment complexes, 100+ units along the I-10 corridor from Mobile, Alabama to Jacksonville, Florida. That's kind of our elevator pitch on the deals we're looking for. What I will say is that once we get into the Florida state lines, it gets so competitive that we are not finding deals that meet the investor criteria so that we can give our investors a return on their money, because what we're really seeing is we're starting to compete with a lot of institutional money in Florida. So the pivot for us is we're starting to look in secondary and tertiary markets that will still provide good cash flow properties. However, the equity gains over time aren't going to be as high. They may see a rise in equity based on whatever city they're next to, if it is a secondary market, but it's not going to appreciate like the primary markets are. So,
yeah. And again, I think if it's all about your investors, and if you're clear about, here's what we're going to see, your cash on cash is going to look better at the end of the deal. It may not be the equity multiplier that they're looking for, but if you can provide some cash, then maybe you can get that way. So from my perspective, again, you just know the market and you know what you're buying, and you can tell your investors honestly and clearly that story. It's cool that you can pivot. It's great. That's the way to make a tough market work, is to figure out a way to make it work for you and your investors, right?
Yeah. Now our investors are looking for returns much higher than the money that's going into the markets in Florida. They're not people from Wall Street are just trying to do capital preservation. They're trying to grow their wealth. So our pivot, we're looking a lot more into Alabama. We're looking into South Georgia as well. And really, I've been focusing a lot of our time building relationships with other syndicators to partner up with them into markets that we haven't spent the past 2 years analyzing, right? And leverage their knowledge in those areas and figure out how we can come up with a way to put our investors' money to work. So we have not syndicated. We have not done our first syndication yet. We put together some webinars. We got people all excited, and then it's like, bam, dude, COVID hits, and so we don't necessarily know if right now is the right time with our experience level, and a lot of our investors being friends and family, they also get cold feet on that as well. And then the moment that we see, okay, the interest rates are dropping, all of the money, it's like all of the money from everywhere that we don't have started getting dumped into real estate. And it's a problem for us. We are going out there and looking at deals, talking to brokers. We've walked a bunch of properties, but at the end of the day, we go submit an LOI for what works for us, and then we pretty much get laughed off the lot in Florida. So that's the pivot that we're doing right now, and it isn't fun, but we ain't gonna quit doing that until we find the right deal that meets the criteria for our investors.
Yeah, this podcast is kind of cracking me up because we have such similar tracks, and it's funny too because I'm super handy as well. I mean, we bought a sixplex. I fixed it up by myself. I bought a little rental property with my father and mother-in-law and my wife, and I spent the time to work on it, and I learned that exact same lesson is my time is better spent, finding the next one or doing something else rather than fixing toilets or whatever. And then you talk about this pivot now. I mean, I haven't done my first syndication either, but I'm the exact same as you. I'm not going to quit. And it has to work. I'm not going to force it. You can't make a deal work. We were talking about that in the pre-show. So it's kind of cracking me up. We have like such parallel tracks, but they're out there, man. And just stay the course. Of course, you're going to find one. Yeah,
I tell you what, man. Well, going back to figuring out how to like free up your time. I remember when I was in that 7-unit apartment complex. Bigger Pockets was one of my favorite podcasts to listen to back then, and I was mudding in some drywall, right? Like taping it in, and I'm just covered in mud. And I hate drywalling. I really hate it. Painting, drywalling, and laying tile. I cannot stand it. But at the time I thought, man, everything that I do is $1 saved, right? Like I'm save. That's kind of how I was brought up. And hadn't broke that mentality yet. But I was listening to Bigger Podcast. I don't remember what the guy's name was, but he's like, look, man, you have got to work on your business, not in your business. Because I bet there's somebody out there right now listening to this who's like doing something that somebody else would do for $10, like drywall or painting or something like that. He's like, stop what you're doing and hire somebody to do that for $10 an hour and then go work on your business. And I'll be damned if I didn't. You know what? This is right. I went outside. I picked up the phone. I looked on Craigslist and found a drywall, and some Panama City, hillbilly guy comes over and he does it for $10 an hour. I was like, God, I'm out there drinking lemonade while this dude's drywalling up all my, he did all of them. And he happened to know a painter, and that guy knew a tile guy. So I ain't ever doing none of this stuff again. I learned how to do it. I learned how much I hate it. Now I'm going to hire somebody to do it. I'm going to drink lemonade, and I'm going to sit there and research the market for the next deal. And that has helped me tremendously. So,
yeah, I mean, that's actually a really good segment. So, this podcast I love real estate. We can talk forever, but a large portion of it is about mindset, right? And so you can try a lot of stuff, but in my opinion, the way to last a long time or really stand the test of time is having the right mindset. So, I have a list of questions I ask every guest, and we can kind of go from there. We can go beyond those, but that's where I like to start. So, first question I ask is, do you have a morning routine?
Yes, I do. Actually, I have a book from the Active Duty Passive Income. This is the 13-week journal, and they've got something there called Ravens. It's a lot like Savers from the Miracle Morning book, and I've read the whole Miracle Morning book, but I put together kind of whatever routine worked for me. And for anybody who's not familiar, it's you wake up, have some silence, do some affirmations, do some visualizations, do some exercise, and then do some reading and scribing. I don't really do the affirmations. Like, self-talk to me makes me puke. I can't sit there and talk myself up. But I do. The one thing that surprised me the most is waking up, just sitting in silence. uh Calling it meditating. What it's meditation. I don't like to say I'm meditating. I'm sitting in silence. I think that sounds a little bit more military in my head, a little bit harder. But I wake up early and I give myself some time to myself. I got a wife, 2 kids, 2 dogs, man. They sleep in. If I get up at the same time they do, my whole day is just, it seems like everything just happens so quick. And then by the time I get home, I'm so tired that I got nothing done that I wanted to get done. So I get up in the morning and I do all that stuff. I'll usually sit in silence. I will write down my goals, and I'll reflect on my long-term goals. I'll do some exercise, and it's usually nothing crazy. I ebb and flow with exercise. Sometimes I kill it, and sometimes I just kind of maintain. Right now, I think I'm in maintenance mode, but get enough to make me feel good. And then I go on about my day, and I don't do every portion of the routine every day. I knock out what I can, just enough to get me going. And sometimes I can't wait to get started on whatever project it is, but I take that time and I take a sit in silence and do a couple breathing techniques or whatnot. Because without doing that, my head is just jogged. I got no direction. So I do have a morning routine. The answer is that yes.
No, I like it. I mean, I asked that question for a reason, because it does kind of start you getting into that, basically saying, hey, this question is pretty simple, but it can lead to a lot of ways. So that's why I like that question.
My wife, if I have a bad day, if I'm moody or, I'm short or I just feel lethargic, she notices. Ramsey, have you been doing your morning routine? Because I'm a completely different person. And you know what? I haven't been doing it. I'll try and wake up and do it. But with the days that I do it, I've got more energy. I'm happy. I'm focused. I'm a lot to handle when I got a lot of energy. And she knows that too. Like, oh, God dang, you need to stop doing your routine. Cause I go full speed.
Too good a routine.
Yeah. Hey, you can dial that routine back a little bit, right? I just get high on life. But if I don't do it, man, it's like almost like a mental load on me. I don't know what it is. So.
Oh, that's cool. No, I think it's powerful too. I agree. I spent some time by myself before my kids and wife are up, and it absolutely changed my world. The other thing is exercise. I mean, my wife will call me out if I haven't, I like to ride my bike, but the point is there's a handful of things that whatever works for you. I mean, I always say this because everyone's answer is different here. Whatever works for you is the best way to do it. But, it is something to be said about being intentional about, maybe not even in the morning, whatever it is, before bed, being intentional about something that makes you a better person. And that's really the end goal, right? So, appreciate your answer there for sure. So the next question is, what books are you reading, or what books can you recommend?
So my favorite book of all time, as far as goal setting goes, would be The One Thing by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan, I believe it is. That book has helped me visualize what I want, and then worked me backwards step by step as to what's the one thing I can do today to achieve that goal. It's another thing that, like, if I realize I don't have any direction, or I just feel like I'm just kind of following stray voltage, I have followed the book and wrote down my long-term goals. I actually have like a journal with like a picture on the front that says the mountains are calling, because that's my goal. I want to retire in the mountains. Been in the Navy 20 years. I haven't been around mountains 20 years. So, but that's kind of like, I open it up and I got my long-term goals, and it reminds me why I'm doing things. And I wrote down, based on what the book kind of tells you to do, I wrote down why I want to do those things, which I think is important too. So that book, The One Thing, if you don't have direction, or if you think that your dream is too big, it kind of teaches you how to to take one bite at a day, build a mountain out of layers of paint is the way I like to look at it. So yeah, that's a very good book. The other book, Pitch Anything. That's a really good one if you are looking at doing syndications, or if you're just doing presentations at your job. Really, that book, Pitch Anything, I think is kind of like the Bible on how to convince people or how to influence people in a short period of time, how to convince them to see things through your lens. It really is a good book. And I have it highlighted and tabulated before I build a pitch deck, before I do a webinar or anything like that. I review it, and it just kind of gives me a good approach on how to make people see the vision that I'm trying to present to them. So those are
awesome recommendations. So I have a funny story about the one thing. So my oldest brother, Ben, kind of turned me on to that book. He actually bought me that journal, mailed it to me. It was super cool. He was really into it. And he got him and his wife signed up for like a couples retreat that they do. And his wife was kind of making fun of him, like the meditation versus sit in silence thing. Like, she's like, I don't want to take a whole weekend and have someone make me do trust falls and tell me what to do. And so she kept calling it like the trust fall weekend, but then they did it and she was blown away. And she's like, this is so powerful. They wrote their goals together, and a handful of things that came out of that. They rolled their goals down separately, which is actually kind of hilarious to do. Like, you may have something different than your wife goal wise, and that's really cool. So yeah, I mean, I've kind of been turned on to the one thing through my brother, but it's fantastic. I agree. And I haven't read Pitch Anything, so it goes on the list for sure. So I appreciate you throwing that out.
Good one.
Next one is you mentioned early on in this show that you had a mentor. The question I ask is, have you had a coach or a mentor, and what was that experience? And if you invested, was it worth it?
Yeah. So my mentors have changed. I've not forgot about the original mentors. I just think, my goals have changed and different from what my original mentor would tell me. So, the answer is yes and yes. I've had a mentor, I've had a coach, and I've had multiple mentors in different areas of my life. Like, if you just have one mentor, you're kind of just, in my opinion, shadowing that person's life. I've got mentors in the military. I've had several. I've got mentors for people that I look up to for the way that their marriage exists. I got mentors in the real estate world. And then most recently we hired a coach. But I will say the first mentor that I had, he had 40 units. By the end of this month, I'll have 40 units. And I feel like I outpaced him because he was set in his old ways, didn't believe in partnering with anybody. Don't partner with anybody. Don't give up any of the equity. Do everything your own. Have all the control. And that got me started because he told me how to do it. But quickly I realized, you know what? In order for me to scale up quickly, I need to partner with other people, right? And honestly, if I'm left alone with my own thoughts, I'm like my own worst enemy. So I'll go crazy. So I need people. I need people like the partners that I have to kind of to ground me back down to reality. So my mentors have changed, but most recently, our Real Focus team has had, we were having issues with our level of thinking, right? We weren't thinking big enough. And we hired on a coach who has helped us break through those glass ceilings and kind of understand that we're not out there alone, that there are other people going through the same thing that we're doing, that everybody goes through the same thing that we're going through. And that when he started out, he had the same thoughts, and just him walking us through and telling us the stuff that we know, like our team collectively, we know how to do all of this. We are doing the right steps. We just, needed somebody to tell us that, yes, you are on the right track. You know, you have all the information. You've read all the books. You understand everything that you need to know. You got all the answers to the quiz. Drive the car. Right? Get in the car and drive it. And that's what he's been helping us do. And I think it's been great. We did pay for it. It wasn't a whole ton of money. We meet once a week, and this guy just coaches us through stuff. And the needle has moved forward every single day. So at the end of the day, worth every bit of the money that we've paid.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. This is again, we keep kind of tracking on the same way. So I totally believe what you're saying as well. I mean, I have some mentors that I just respect and look up to immensely for how they live their life, their marriage, that type of thing. And then I have mentors in other parts of my life as well. And then I actually got super lucky in that I found my current coach through we started a meetup together. And I told you in the pre-show, um, Jens was on my show. Jens and Jason both were on my show, and they're amazing guys. But it got kind of lucky. And what's funny is early on, he told me he went farther, faster partnering, and I had the exact same mindset you did. It was like, I don't want to partner. I want to control. I want to understand the property. I want to do it all. I want to make the choices. I don't want to ask someone. It was just super selfish, and it was just way off. And it took me a while to come around to exactly what you said is, partnering is powerful, and it's not annoying if you pick the right people. It's actually the opposite. It's actually super powerful. So really appreciate you sharing. And yeah, I mean, a similar story. Like, it's a small investment for what it is, in my opinion, but I really love it. So that's the reason I asked the question.
Well, let me say this about the partnering piece, that the first mentor that I had, his way of doing things was buying it. He would never sell it. The reason I didn't want to partner is because I just didn't know. I didn't want a 30-year marriage on this mortgage. But once I started realizing, hey, with a joint venture, I mean, we can agree to sell in 5 years, and in 5 years, if we don't want to sell, then we vote on it. So it wasn't as long of a marriage. I mean, I can do 5 years with somebody. 30 years, I ain't even been with my wife that long. So I definitely don't know if I'm going to be with some, what I mean, some other dude. So once I realized that the commitment between the partners gave us room to grow or room to cut it off, that was a much easier pill to swallow for me to join in with other people that I didn't know so well. So that helped out a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, it was part of that too for me. It was more like, what if I don't like their idea? And what turns out is most of the time their idea is as good or better than mine in reality. And it's like, I just had the wrong mindset. And so, yeah, I appreciate what you said there for sure. All right. The next one's a little tougher. So what's the biggest, I still write this down the wrong way. What's the biggest mistake was how this question started, but I stopped doing that because one of my guests was awesome. And she's like, that's a lame way to ask, basically. So, what is something that you wouldn't repeat? What is a lesson that we can learn from something? And you kind of already shared buying in Shreveport without knowing the market, but if you have anything else, then that our listeners could learn from.
So, kind of talking about like how I first got started out doing everything on my own. I definitely would not repeat that. But more so, I wasn't thinking, and this is something that we've been working with our coach about. I wasn't thinking big enough. I was just thinking my down payment means that I can buy X, right? I wasn't thinking I need to go out and network. I need to focus on people that can change my life, establish relationships with them, add value to their life, and eventually it'll come back around to help out with me and my families. I'm realizing that now. The biggest one though is I invested for 5 years and never put my name out there, never told anybody other than like really close friends and family that I was doing this. For some reason I had it in my head that if the military caught word that I was making X amount of dollars outside the military, that'd be a problem, right? I wanted the military to know that my focus was always my duty. And that's never changed. But whenever I'm off, I invest in real estate. For 5 years, I didn't tell anybody. I made one post about 8 months ago. Hey guys, just want to let you know I invest in real estate. If you're looking to get into multifamily properties, let me know. If you know anybody who's looking to sell a multifamily property, let me know. Simple as that. Had like a picture of some apartment complex I didn't even own. This hotel that I'm closing on was brought to me from that single post. It wasn't brought to me right away, but a couple months later, a friend of mine said, hey, my mom wants to sell her hotel. You interested in buying? At the time I wasn't, because it was a hotel. It wasn't a multifamily property. But most recently, I've gotten a lot better at the short-term rental world, and they hit me up again. Hey, we're getting ready to put it on the market. We'd like to sell it to you. So here I have from one post telling people that I invest in real estate. I've got somebody bringing a property that's in my wheelhouse, close to where I grew up, the market that I know, saying, we would like you to buy our property. And they're friends of family of mine. So it's a great relationship. It's been the best seller I've ever had. And I wouldn't even say would deal with her. I get to do this with her because she truly does want to see the hotel that her and her husband built move on the way that they built it and see it flourish. She lives pretty close by. So I would have put my name out there sooner. I would have started establishing real relationships. I'll never not do that again and kind of playing in a vacuum.
Yeah, no, both of those things are amazing. So the first thing you said was, I think a lot of people think this way is, well, to buy a rental property, I have to have X amount of dollars. So let's say it's $100,000 house. You need 20% down, whatever it might be. I need $20,000 to become a landlord. But in reality, there's so many ways to do this business, because there's lots of people out there who have money who don't want anything to do with running a property or finding it or buying any of that stuff. So there's lots of ways for someone with little or no money to get in. It's going to take some work. You have to learn, have some hustle, of course. Yeah. But the point is that mindset of this is how much money I have equals how many properties I can purchase. That's just inaccurate. It's a really cool lesson that you shared, is that's not reality. If you have the ability to partner with someone, if you have the work ethic to learn and the drive, you can get in with no money and you can do a great job. So first of all, I love sharing. I love that. And then the second thing was exactly what you said, was put yourself out there. I mean, you hear it on Bigger Pockets all the time. It's like, tell people what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I was the same way. I was like, I don't embarrass isn't the right word, but just didn't want to tell people for some reason, because it seemed like they would think that I was, I don't know, knew a secret or something. I'm not sure, but I had a similar mindset. So I really appreciate you saying that. It was the same for me. It was like, the sooner you can get people out, the better. It's so funny. My neighbor just waved through the window. So that's why.
Yeah. Well, it's the thing is we do know a secret. We know how to invest in real estate. Everybody is curious about some form of investment in real estate. The way that I was looking at it was, I don't want to go ask people for money. Like, I don't want to bother people asking them for money. But the moment I flipped the narrative and said, you know what, I had money and I didn't know what to do with it. And I wish somebody came along and showed me what to do with it. And the moment I started thinking, well, I know what to do with that stuff. I know how to invest in real estate. I've got a history doing it. It's been fairly successful. The Shreveport, we won't talk about that, but I learned my lesson there. Yeah. I paid for that lesson. You don't have to. Right. So the moment I look at it, I'm not asking you for money. I'm asking you to let me make you money. That's a way different narrative. And everybody's going to say yes to that. They might not invest with you, but if the narrative is, can I help you make money? Well, duh. I mean, but if you're asking people to borrow money and that's how you frame it and that's how you think about it, they're going to read through that and they're saying, you're not going to borrow any money from me. But flip it around and say, I'm going to help you make some money. There's a lot of value in that. I think a lot more people can swallow that pill to approach people for raising capital.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that is kind of the game changer, is let me give you an opportunity, because that's really what it is, rather than, hey, can I have some money to go out and buy the steel because I don't have enough to buy it. That's really, I mean, they're completely different, when in reality, yeah, you're right. I mean, thanks for the correction, because there is kind of a secret sauce. I mean, to know how to make money and then offer that to people is kind of a secret. So, I mean, I don't want it to be a secret. That's part of the reason that I do this podcast, is to get the word out and help educate. But it does take time and it takes a lot of energy. If you want to learn, it takes, but if you got some cash and you want to make some money on it, then hopefully you know someone that you like and trust that you can place this money with. So yeah.
Hey, hit me up.
Yeah, Ramsey's pretty cool so far. You got a spot free in Shreveport for sale.
I got a real nice apartment complex in Shreveport. No, but yeah, I mean,
no, I'm joking. I mean, absolutely. It's someone like you that knows what they're doing, honest, hardworking, all that stuff. Go out and find you. to place money, and the returns really are there. I mean, there's a reason it's super hot, is because it's proven to work. So I dig it.
Yeah.
All right, next one is, what mindset tip can you share with someone listening that can help propel them? And I like to ask, maybe starting out, what's something that someone who hasn't really thought much about that, what's a tip you can give?
Well, so one of the big ones that, like what we just talked about, was with mindset. The moment, like just a different perspective changes the whole way you approach something. And you can have a morning routine, you can write down your goals, you can do all this stuff, but if your mind is not there, then you're not going to get there. And so the phrase that I like to keep in the back of my head is change your thoughts, change your mind, you change your thoughts. You change your thoughts, you change your actions. You change your actions, you change your results. You change your results, you'll change your life. So it all starts in the mind. Get your mind correct. You don't have to do all these affirmations and the self-talk. You just got to believe in yourself. And to believe in yourself means going out there and accepting that you are going to fail, and it's okay. The difference between a mistake and a failure is a mistake is something you didn't learn from, or a mistake is something that you learned from. A failure is something you gave up on. And so if you go out there and say, I'm going to take a risk, right? I'm going to take a leap, do it, get educated, right? Have an understanding of what you're doing. But if you have analysis paralysis and you're just scared to take a forward movement, it's because you're in your comfort zone, and your comfort zone is going to lend you working until you're 60 something years old. And then you're going to retire on Social Security. Like, I mean, I'm not trying to sell fear to you, but that's kind of what it is. So whenever it comes down to getting started out, just go, right? Change your thoughts. Like, I can do this. I can move forward, and you don't have to have 100% plan, an 80% plan. Trust me, I'm in the military. We move out on an 80% plan almost every time. And you know what? Come home safe every time. So that would be mine. Change the way that you think, and you'll change your results.
Yeah, I love that tip. And one thing that I've thought of that goes with that. So one thing I say a lot is either you win or you learn. Similar kind of saying is like, learn from your mistakes, and it's okay. And the other thing that I've said or heard a guest say was, what's the worst case scenario? Like your Shreveport deal, you lose a little money, but you probably learned a ton. And to dive in, I mean, I completely agree. Believe in yourself. You can do it. Absolutely. It's so powerful. So great tip. I think I botched your tip, actually. I mean, the way that you said it was significantly better than the way I tried to recap it, but awesome.
You caught me off guard. I think I messed it up, but it's all right. It's it's good. The pattern's there.
Yeah. So to me, these are the hardest ones. So how do you define success?
So my definition of success is not having to do things that you don't want to, right? So you can look at success and say, well, I want a whole bunch of money. Well, what does money get you? At the end of the day, if you get to do the things that you love, but you still have to do the things that you hate, I don't consider that successful. So yeah, you can be a successful doctor, you can be a successful lawyer, and if your measure of success from those, now don't get me wrong, people love their jobs. If you love your job, then you're not doing something that you hate. But if you make a bunch of money doing something you hate, to me, you're not successful. And that's my definition of success. So for me, to be successful means I don't have to do things that I hate in order to get to do things that I love, right? So I'm going to probably retire in the military from the military in 5 years. I'll be retired technically. Does that mean that I can live the lifestyle that I want? Depends on how the next 5 years goes. But I've been working for the past 5 years doing something that I love, which is real estate, so that whenever I get out of the military, which I love the military, but I'll have enough of it at 20 years, I'll be ready I will be able to say no to anything I don't want to do. Ain't nobody telling me where I got to go, where I got to be, what I got to wear, what my haircut's got to look like, who I got to work with. You ain't doing it. It's not going to happen. So my plan is in 5 years, I'll be able to call myself successful, because ain't nobody going to get me to do anything I don't want to do, brother. It's just not going to happen. So as long as I can except for my wife will she'll be able to get me to do all kinds of stuff that I don't want to do.
Yeah,
But
I think anyone
is
that
what
has a wife can
can
get
attest to
behind that. My wife, yeah, I mean, she's amazing, but she gets the say for sure. So, okay, the next one would be, kind of piggybacks on that. If someone asks you, why are you successful? You specifically, what is your response to that?
100%. The people that have been in my life that for some reason or the other have wanted me to be successful. If I were to sit there and try and take credit for my successes, I would be madly missing the point. I wouldn't have the rank that I have or the career that I've had without people who made the decision that I should have it. Now, that's definitely a military thing. Outside in the civilian world, I can't think that it's too far from the truth either. So if you think you're going to do everything that yourself, if you think your work ethic and all that's going to lead to success, it probably will, but it's because of who you are and because of who saw you being who you are. If you try to do all that in a vacuum, like I said, trying to do everything yourself, you may see forward motion, but I don't think you'll be able to define that as success because you don't have anybody to share it with. But for me, every success that I've had has either been the support of my wife, the support of my superiors, the support of my friends, or the support of the people that I partner with. And that's what's led me to being where I'm at today.
Well, I can't say enough about that answer. I mean, that's the coolest answer I've ever heard. It's so powerful and so true to give credit to the people that saw what they saw in you and led you along the way. So I don't have anything to add. That was amazing.
Thank you.
So that's the list of questions. So what I like to do at the end here is say, first of all, thanks for being here. This is an amazing show. I've really enjoyed chatting with you. And how can people get in touch with you? And where can they go to reach out to you?
So if you're interested in partnering with us as a passive investor or even just partnering up on the general partner side for syndications, reach out to me at Ramsey@realfocus.org. And that's RAMSEY at real as in real estate focus.org. If you are out there and you want to be, like I have my own podcast as well. You mind if I give a plug?
No, go for it. Yeah.
If you want to be a guest on our podcast, you got some real estate experience under your belt and want to share with our listeners, it's the Gorilla State Podcast, and that's Gorilla like the animal state podcast. You can look us up on Spotify or YouTube. And then I also have a podcasting Facebook group for any host out there or guests out there. If you want to guest on other podcasts like Eric's, or we have been going for 2 weeks as of today, and we've got 200 members, and they're all hosts, most hosts guests as well, and they're host or guests. So you can join that Facebook group and start getting your name out there. I'm all about getting your name out there as of about 6 months ago.
Well, I will vouch for your Facebook group. One, it's grown incredibly. I mean, I joined and I had within, a couple of days, 6 guests saying, yeah, let's do it. So perfect. Kudos to you for starting that. Thank you for starting that. And it really is a powerful group. So if you're interested in being on or hosting podcasts, absolutely reach out. Ramsey, thank you again for your time. This has been incredible. I'll let you have your evening, but thanks for being on.
All right, Eric, appreciate you having me on the show.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Real Estate Mindset Podcast. If you've enjoyed the content today, please follow this show wherever you listen to podcasts. And don't forget to head over to wildoakcapital.com for more information or to connect with Eric directly. Please take a moment to leave a review or tell a friend about what you've listened to today. We hope you'll tune in again soon.